Good morning students, I am Shomajit sir. Today I am here to deliver my lecture on topic nervous system. So watch the entire lecture to gain basics out of it. So without any delay, let's start with the topic nervous system. This is from the chapter control and coordination. So let's start. So let's see the topic about nervous system. You can see a neuron drawn very nicely given and the synapse formation, one neuron another neuron. So always the synapse formation is done between a head of a neuron and a tail of a neuron. So between the tail of first neuron and a head of another neuron. So we'll see these one by one, and what are the neurotransmitter, how the transmission is going on, stimuli passes. Now what is nervous system? A nervous tissue are often found in brain, spinal cord and nerves. Neuron or nerve cell conduct nerve impulses which helps cell or neuroglia support and nourish the neuron. Now let me give you a little bit description of nervous tissue. So you can see the description. Neurons are branching cells, and these cells possesses that may be quite long extended from the nucleus containing cell body. Also contributing to the nervous tissue are non-excitable supporting cells. So neuron processes are of two types. One is cell body, cell body and axons. So they have they have classified into two types. Also we can consider that neuron processes can be divided into cell body, dendrites and axon. So axon is the long terminal part. And what are the functions? And neurons transmit electrical signals from sensory receptor and to effector muscles and glands supporting cells, glands which support and protect neurons, and the location is brain, spinal cord and nerves. So you can see the long one is an axon, and the fiber like is a dendron, and the middle of and in the cell body there is a nucleus. Now in the neuron, what is cell body? It's a metabolic center of the neuron. It contains many organelles. You should correct that. It will be it contents. And what is dendrites? They are the short processes that receive and carry incoming impulses towards the cell bodies. Next is axon. It is the co-link region of the cell body and take information away from the body. So you can see the dendrites, you can see the nucleus, you can see the cell body, you can see the axons. Next is Nissl granules. So these are certain granules, and important in maintaining cell shape. Next is node of Ranvier. So the gap between the Schwann cells are called node of Ranvier. So you can see the Schwann cells, and between the Schwann cells are node of Ranvier. Next, what is synapse? Each axon terminal is separated from the next neuron by a tiny gap called synapse. So you can see a neuron figure divided into two parts. One is cell body and as axon. In the cell body you have a nucleus, you have a dendrite. Then we have in axon we have a myelin sheath, a node of Ranvier, the Schwann cells. Next, the structure and function of neuron, same thing. So neuron is the scientific name for nerve cells. And neuron consists of three basic parts. One is cyton, dendrites and axon. So cyton or cell body and dendrite receive messages, impulses and send them to the cell body, and axon sends messages away from the cell body. So nerve impulses travel from one neuron to another across synapses or spaces in between the cells. The jumping across the synapse is facilitated by chemicals called neurotransmitter. So neurotransmitters are there. So you can see the different kinds of neuron. One is unipolar, bipolar, pseudo-unipolar and multipolar. So first is unipolar. Unipolar means one cell body. It consists of neuron consists of one cell body. Bipolar. So you can see For unipolar, it consists of one cell body and one axon. For bipolar, you can see one cell body is there and two axons are there. Pseudopolar, it resembles like that of two axons and one cell body, but it's false. And multipolar means you can see in the cell body there are numerous strokes, dendrites. These are multipolar. All right. So in unipolar, you don't have any dendrites and all, you can see here, right? And we have mostly the multipolars where all the where in the cell body numerous dendrites are there, numerous dendrons and dendrites are there. So you can see a motor neuron. So neurons are of three types. One is motor neuron, relay neuron, and sensory neuron. So in motor neuron you see, relay neuron you see, and sensory neuron you see. All right, we'll see this one by one. So neuron is the structural and functional unit of nervous system. It has a cell body called cyton containing a nucleus and cytoplasm. So it has several branches. It has several branch structures called dendrite. It has a long nerve fiber called axon, which is covered by a protective covering called myelin sheath. And junction between the two neurons is called synapse. So messages pass through the nerve cell in the form of chemical and electrical signals called nerve impulse. The dendrites receive the information and starts a chemical reaction which produces electrical impulses which passes through the axon. All right. So one chemical impulses are there. So these are parts of neuron with functions. You can see nucleus function is it controls the entire neuron. Alright, again I repeat, the function of nucleus, it controls the entire neuron. Then axon function is it transfers signal to other cells and organs. Then myelin sheath function is it increases the speed of the signals. Then axon terminal, the function is it forms junction with other cells. Then you have dendrites, the function is it receives signal from other cells. Then we have cell body, it organizes and keeps the cell functions. Then we have cell membrane, it protects the cell. Then axon helic, it generates impulses in the neuron. Then we have node of Renvre, it allows diffusion of ions. And Schwann cell, it produces myelin sheath. So this is the structure of neuron. You see the cell body are there, axon are there, right? Myelin sheath are there. So you can see how the impulses passes. First the impulse is received by the dendrites, all right, then move to dendron, then cell body, then passes through the axon and ultimately it passes through the axon terminals. You see 1 2 3 are given. So you can see the transmission of messages through neuron. You can see how it's passing. First the dendrites accept it, passes to the cell body, then to the axon, and you can see the next neuron are there. So what is synapse? Synapse is a junction between the two neurons. So how the junction takes place? So we know that in a neuron there is a cell body and an axon, isn't it? So what is synapse? It is a junction, or it is a point where a junction between the tail of first neuron and the head of next neuron. You can see the diagram given for synapse here, magnified. Now myelin sheath, what a myelin sheath? The fatty material made by glial cells, it insulates the axon. It allows for rapid movement of electrical impulses along axon. And what a node of Renvre, the gap in myelin sheath where action potentials are transmitted. So multiple sclerosis is a breakdown of myelin sheath, and the speed of neural impulse ranges from 2 to 200 mph. So next you can see the myelin conduction. You can see the node of Renvre, right? The depolarization, right? So next we can see the communication, how it communicates, right? So neurotransmitter from vesicles. So you can see neurotransmitter enters the synaptic gap, then the neurotransmitter binds to the receptor on the receiving neuron, then the neurotransmitter forms from vesicles, then neurotransmitter enters the synaptic gap, then the neurotransmitter binds to the receptor on the receiving neuron. Next we have neural anatomy and communication. So what is synapse? It's a junction between the axon tip of the sending neuron and the dendrite or cell body of the receiving neuron. Alright. So the tiny gap at the junction is called synaptic gap or cleft. So you can see the axon ending or terminal bud. One is presynaptic vesicle. You can see the neurotransmitter. The postsynaptic, the first end of a neuron is presynaptic vesicle, and the next neuron head is called postsynaptic. Alright, so the axon terminal is the presynaptic part, and the dendrite of the next neuron, the head of the next neuron of the dendrite where it connects, is called postsynaptic cells. So transfers the electrical nerve impulses by chemical neurotransmitter from one neuron to next. Next you have neurotransmitter, the chemicals messenger. Alright, the chemical messenger that travel across the synaptic gap between the neuron. When released by the sending neuron, the neurotransmitter travel across the synapse and bind to the receptor site on the receiving neuron, thereby influencing whether it will generate an impulse, whether it will generate a neuron impulse or not. So you can find, I have given the homework questions, copy it down in your copy and try to solve it. First question is draw and level the structure of neuron. Write the location and function of neuron. Next is explain the processes of transmission of nerve impulses from one neuron to next. And fourth is define synapse. So in this video lecture I have discussed about the nervous system. Thank you students. This was all about the entire video lecture. We have discussed about the topic nervous system. So stay at home, stay safe. I am Shomji sir signing off for today, and again we'll meet in the next class. Thank you students.